Well, Shabbat Shalom. We want to welcome everyone to the Sabbath Day Conference Call. This is the 15th day of the 12th month, and this is the second Sabbath. And this is Barbara, and I'm serving as one of your hosts today, and I am in Florida today. I just want to welcome all our family and friends of Yah that are here today, if you're here by telephone or internet, and those of you that might be listening to the recording this week. If you would like more information about the Creator's calendar, please go to our website, www.lunarsabbathday.com. And that's a great source of information. There are articles, videos, calendars. Also, our events page shows you when we're having Passover, when we're having our conference calls, and how to connect. We will be having a Passover weekend on March 31, April 1, and April 2. But anyway, today's topic is a great topic, and we have a guest presenter here today from Alaska. Brother AhpaPorter agreed to be with us, and he has a screen up here. You can all see it. It says Meaning Behind the Numbers. So welcome today, Brother Ahpa. We're happy to have you with us.
Oh, thank you, Sister Barbara. Yeah, so what I'll be talking about today is just talking a bit about how it is that we calculate the conjunction and how it relates to also how it relates to Scripture, and of course, if you have a staff or a measuring, how it is that you calculate it, and to kind of show that the simple calculation. And so what I'm going to be presenting now is the meaning behind the numbers. So I just want to get people a little bit familiar with the numbers and the kind of simplicity behind what they mean. So here we have meaning behind the numbers. Oh, there it is. Okay,
hey, Brother
so this
Ahpa,
is...
excuse me just a moment. I'm going to mute everybody, and then when we get to, unmute you, and then when we get to discussion, I'll unmute everybody. So just
Okay, so to break it down simply, if you understand just a little bit about geometry, a circle has 360 degrees in it. And we know that the sun and the moon travel at a rate that is consistent with a circle. Even though they say the moon travels in an elliptical orbit, for some reason this calculation that we have is spot on as far as calculating the rate of the sun and the moon traveling around this circle. So when you're looking at the moon, it's got a certain rate in which it travels around the Earth. And it travels that rate around the Earth. It will make one full rotation around that circle or around the Earth in 24.5 hours. So the sun, the same thing, except the rate in which it travels is 24 hours. You can get down into the minutes and everything like that, but for this exercise, we'll show that that's not really that relevant. Okay, so this example right here, the sun rotation rate. I wanted to give an example of what it means to be traveling 360 degrees. If you look at the white, you will see that it's segmented into certain degrees around this 360 degree circle. And to show, because time is based on movement, and pretty much time, when you look at time, it's really a division of everything, right? You got years divided up into months, and months divided up into days, and days into hours, and hours into minutes, and so on and so forth. So essentially what all we're doing right here with this example is dividing the time in amount of degrees, or just dividing the degrees really around the 360 circle, but you'll see that that actually has time in it, right? So for this right here, we want to show the hourly rate. How fast is that sun moving at an hourly rate? It's important for our calculation of the conjunction. So you get the 360 degrees. We know that's for one day. Well, how many hours in a day are there? There's 24 hours in a day. And if you divide that 360 by your 24, you essentially get 15 degrees per hour. So each 15 degrees will be 1 hour. Or, yes, 15 degrees per hour. 1 hour, 15 degrees. Okay, so the moon obviously is a bit different. I still use the 15-degree circle there because I couldn't find them that are 14.5 degrees per hour, but it's just to kind of give you an idea that the moon is traveling slower than the sun. And that calculation is 360 degrees divided by your 24.5 hours equals your 14.5 degrees per hour. So with this, I just, if you read that, I'm trying to think of what scripture it was in Psalms where it talks about the strong man running the race. I think it's Psalms 19, where it talks about the sun catching up to the moon, because each month it laps the moon, right? So essentially right here, the sun is traveling at a rate about 0.5 degrees per hour faster than the moon. So if you look, I just added the two calculations of both the sun, which is the 360 divided by the 24 hours equals 15 degrees per hour, and then right below that, that's the moon, 360 divided by the 24.5 hours equals the 14.5 per hour. So that's where you get that 0.5 degrees per hour. Now it's important because that's essentially, it's going to be added to our calculation of measuring the distance between the sun and the moon and how fast it's going to catch up to that moon. That's the important thing. Okay. Now I'll be going over to so here we have measuring conjunction with your staff. I just use this as kind of an introduction, what YAHUSHA was saying. He was talking about, part of what it means to follow him. He says, then YAHUSHA, beholding him, loved him, and said unto him, one thing you lack, go your way and sell whatever it is you have, and give to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven, and come and take up your staff and follow me. So there's a couple examples in Scripture where they directly relate the staff as a measuring rod. And if you could see that an angel has that measuring rod and it's segmented, right? And, say he is measuring the city, a measuring rod is obviously not the size of a city, and it's not a ruler that can go all the way up. If you're measuring something, it's something at a distance that you're measuring, right? And so, right here, so it says, the one who spoke with me had a gold measuring rod to measure the city and its gates and its walls. So one of the things that we found earlier as we were having our discussions about the alphabet, or the Aleph Tav, which is the Hebrew alphabet, is that it says Lamed is the 12th letter in the Hebrew Aleph Tav, and it means staff. And we know what 12, the significance of the meaning of 12 months, and so on and so forth. So here's another one that's very relevant in Revelation 11:1 that we discussed at one of our conference calls. And there was given to me a reed like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, "Rise and measure the temple of YAHUAH, and the altar, and them that worship therein." And so if you look at variations of this scripture, when you pull up online, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of different slightly variations of this, and essentially this is what it means. Then I was given a measuring stick, and I was told, "Go, measure the temple of God, and the altar of those who worship therein." And so I don't know if how many people here were on my last call, but essentially this picture right here was just flipped up, and it was the picture of the conjunction. So you see in the background, you'll see this Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. And essentially, we know that our Father is the source of light, and that's symbolic also too of the way that the luminaries work in the sun and the moon, being, of course, the sun the head, and the moon the body, and we've talked about that in our last presentation. So I just wanted to put a couple of scriptures in here about Yahusha, the sun. It says, "And when he was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light." And on the right, one Lord, there is one body, one Spirit, even as you are called in one hope of your calling, one YAHUAH, one belief, one immersion, one Yah, and the Father of all, who is above all, and through all, and in you all. And it's on the bottom, I just put, "We will go to worship at his tabernacles. We will worship at his footstool." And I just want to remind people that, this is symbolic. I'm not saying worship the sun and the moon. I'm just showing a symbolic meaning of the sun and the moon as it relates to also to the earth. In, of course, being a footstool, if we're saying, hey, the sun's the head and the moon's the body, that's at the temple. Obviously, we're at the footstool of this kind of process that's going on in the luminary bodies that starts the process of our worship during the Sabbath and the holy days. So it's a symbol of unity. So measuring the conjunction, the temple of YAHUAH. Okay, so let's begin the setting. So it's 5 o'clock in the morning on the 23rd of the lunar month. We wait patiently as we look for the third quarter moon, revealing where the sun is coming up. Okay, I just say that because during about that third quarter, you have the light of that moon when you're up early in the morning, and that moon is reflectant of obviously reflecting the sun, so you know where the sun's coming from. It's going to point to where the sun's coming up that morning. So the sun begins to rise at 6 a.m. and reveals the morning glory. Well, at that point, you can take the calculation if you have or you can measure it if you have a clear sky. But it says it's time to measure the conjunction to temple relationship to the wedding of the two great luminaries. So this following slide, we're going to measure the conjunction during the midday on the 23rd day. That's where we start. So here's an example. I wanted to show everybody what exactly we're talking about when we're lifting up that staff and we're measuring the certain amount of degrees in the sky as it relates to our measuring staff. Okay, so the conditions are, it's the 23rd day, as you see up here on the left, top left. It's the 23rd day, and it's about 12:30 in the afternoon. And you're looking down at the man, and he's extending his arms. And if you could see the man's head, you could see those dotted lines going down. His eyes are looking at certain points in his staff that go up to the center of the moon and goes up to the center of the sun that's chasing the moon. And you can see right between those two dotted lines, that is 70 centimeters. Well, that 70 centimeters is perfectly reflectant of the amount of degrees in the air, right? So the answer is 140. So the answer is 140 hours at 5.3 days, and 29th day at 8:22 a.m. So we'll describe how we get that here in a second. Dawn is at 6 a.m. When is the new moon day? Well, we know if dawn is at 6 a.m. and we measure, and if the conjunction is at 8:22 a.m., obviously the new moon day is going to be the next day, right? It won't be that day. Oh. Okay, so I just wanted to show here what it means in the moon phase. On the 23rd day, we measured here, and the conjunction is at 8:22 at this time. So I just wanted to use the two various calendars because just kind of show what time we're talking about. Okay, so there's four basic steps to the measurement process, or to the calculation and measuring that whole process. First, you measure the distance between the sun and the moon in centimeters. Second, you convert the measurement into hours. And third, you'll convert the hours into days. Now, these three are really simple to do, as we'll show here in a second, but I would say the hardest part for people is going to be, or at first for everybody, is probably going to be this part right here. Calculate the exact time of day. But we'll show how simple that is here a bit too. So here it is. Here's the calculation all summed up in the 4 steps. Okay, so we took the measurement, and we see here that we have centimeters, that we measured at 70 centimeters on a staff. And here we want to look at the hours until conjunction. Well, if you recall what we talked about earlier about a little bit about the meaning of the numbers, we were looking at that variance rate of 0.5 degrees per hour. So you measure the 70 centimeters on your staff, and you divide that variance by 0.5. And that's where you get your conjunction, okay? That's where you're going to get your conjunction in hours, which is 140 hours until your conjunction. Okay, simply 70 divided by 0.5 equals 140 hours. So essentially all you're doing is you're just doubling your calculation to get your 140 hours. Okay, so days until conjunction. So essentially all you're doing there in that conversion is you're saying, hey, there's 140 hours. There's 140 hours. You divide that by how many hours in a day, and you get your 5.83 days. So we here on the bottom here, the 4th step, we're trying to find the precise time. And so essentially what I just did here was I created a little table to kind of give you a visual illustration of how you do that, but we'll show how it's even easier when you calculate it out. Okay, so here we have the lunation day starts on the 23rd, and we took it at 12:30, right? So we know that there's 5.83 days. So what happens is that you just say, okay, well, from that day, the 23rd at 12:30, there's 5.83 days. Well, if you just go over 5 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days until the 28th, then you know that it's 12:30 p.m. Right? So what you do is you say, okay, there's 5, but there's 0.83. Well, what does that 0.83 mean? Well, the simple way to do that is to basically, you know that each one day equals 24 hours. So you do that 24 hours times your 0.83, and you're going to get that amount of hours until and that will be your exact time during conjunction. So which essentially ends up being 8:22 a.m. So here we go. Well, we'll simplify. We'll simplify it, and even more so, because once you get the hang of it, you realize how simple it is in the sense where you'll just be able to do these calculations in your head. And so you have the 70 centimeters right here, divided by your 0.5 equals your 140 hours, equals your 5.83 days. So we know it was on the 23rd at 12:30, but plus your 5 days equals your 28th day, and then plus the 0.83 of a day, and equals your 29th at 8:22 a.m. So that's about as simple as I could put it. If you look down there, I just put MCD because really what you're doing is you're just measuring, you're converting, and you determine the exact time of the day. So that way people can have it secondhand, or not secondhand, but they can have it in their mind as they're moving through that process. And so essentially with this presentation, it gets a lot easier once you just do it, and you're taking your measurements, and then you're measuring out, and then you figure out the exact time of day, and then you go onto your World's Last Challenge calendar app. I don't know if anybody has that, and you see if it lines up with their days. And I've been doing it for a while now, and it's lined up every single time. Okay.
That's good to know.
So here we have. Oops. Oh, I think I lost the slide. Oh no, we start at step 2. We start at step 2, and so simply right here with these. I don't know what happened here, but look, they're both coming up, and I had an exercise for you guys to do, but they're coming up both the question and the hours. And essentially with these questions, I want you to get an idea of the kind of variance of times. Like you can have, you measure 60 centimeters on a staff, and how many hours until conjunction? Well, we know we just double it, right? It'll be 120 hours, 80 cm, and there'll be 160 hours, 100 cm, 200 hours. So essentially, I just wanted to show everybody how simple it is that measuring the stick is, and what it means to the hours until conjunction. Oh, here we go. So if 120 hours until conjunction, how many days until conjunction? It'll be 5 days. That one's simple. But 160 hours until conjunction, how many days until conjunction? Okay. So essentially with these steps, I just go through the steps, and I'll just let you guys review those. And then here's the third presentation that I want to bring up is basically how to build see. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Here we go. Okay, so building a staff for measurement. Just wanted to show you guys the ease that you guys could build this. So basically, there's just 2 steps. You just buy or build your wooden walking staff. We want it at least about 4.5 feet or 4.29 feet in length. And step 2, you just want to mark it, right, with in centimeters. And then I recommend just putting it in 10 centimeter sections. And then your last section will be 1 centimeter. The 10 centimeters will be divided up into 1 centimeter. So creating your notches. So essentially right here, if you look on the right, the staff, if you look closely, is notched out. You can barely see those notches in there, but essentially between all the segments, I wanted to create the number 120 centimeters, which is obviously 12 10-centimeter notches, 12 notches.
It's on vibrate.
Okay, so here's what we're really looking at, the notches in the staff. If you look on the right, we can see that we have the 10 centimeter sections burnt in, and I put a marker on it to make them more noticeable. And then on the left, I just wanted to give the example of 1 centimeter notches that are within that 10 centimeters. And the reason why I notch out 1 centimeter only for one of these is because essentially what will happen is that there's going to be obviously a variance somewhere in your staff. When you're lifting your staff up, you'll have your thumb on one, measuring the center of one object on your sun, say on your left. And then sometimes in between, it'll be in between a 10 centimeter notch. So you'll be able to have that exact preciseness in your centimeters. So you're only going to need that in one notch. You don't need to do that in every single one of them. You don't need to do a centimeter in all of them. And so I guess with closing, I just wanted to say put this scripture in here. And essentially what we're saying here is use your rod to bear fruit like your brother Aaron, Levite the high priest. I just want to read from that in Numbers. It says, speak unto the children of Israel, and take every one of them a rod, according to the house of their fathers, 12 rods. Write you every man name upon his rod. And Moshe spoke unto the children of Israel, and every one of their princes gave him a rod, a piece, for each prince one, according to their fathers' houses, even 12 rods. And rod of Aaron was among their rods. And then it goes on and says, and it shall come to pass that the man's rod whom I shall choose shall blossom. And it came to pass that on the morrow Moshe went into the tabernacle of witnesses, and behold, the rod of Aaron for the house of Levi was budded and brought forth buds and blossomed, bloomed blossoms and yielded almonds. So the rod of the priest bring forth fruit, right? So I guess with closing, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and I hope that was useful in learning the numbers, what it means to measure, the conjunction, and some of the places in Scripture where it talks about the rod, and hopefully that's what you guys will do. There's easier ways. There's easier ways where you could just, not easier ways, but there's other ways where you can measure with a what do you call those things? some kind of measuring stick or something like that, or what do you call that thing, that retractable? You can do it in inches and you convert it into centimeters and things like that, but quite frankly, the measuring rod's the easiest way to go. I mean, you just lift up that rod and you do your measurement and you do your simple little conversion real fast, and once you get the hang of it, you'll notice that it's really easy. If you just follow those steps, and then you start to reconfirm them on with your World's Last Chance app and to see if they're accurate, and to build that familiarity. I think you'll find it quite pleasurable, especially the first time. The first time for me doing it was when we were in Arizona, and you know, I was like, I knew the calculations, I knew how to do it, but I didn't really, I really didn't put it to practice. And I'm like, you know, I better put it to practice and make sure that this is really working here. So you know, that's when I started in Arizona, and then I just been doing it ever since here in Alaska. And I just want to say that when you're waiting at YAHUAH's gates and you're waiting for his days to be shown up, it's really interesting because most of the time from the 22nd to the 26th or 7th, we'll get a clear day where we can measure it. There's been just once or twice where it actually had to go over into the next month, and I had to back calculate it because of the weather. But it was still there. It was still there to back calculate. And so I've been monitoring that and keeping track of that. And here in Alaska, that's important because we have a lot of overhang. We got mountains here to the left. And so it has been very, very valuable building this relationship with the sun and the moon, and a lot of fun. And it's not a coincidence. This is not a man-made calculation. You know, it is. There's no way that it could be this convenient or this easy for a man to lift up his rod and to measure the luminaries, and then be able to calculate the Lord's holy days, and just to be that perfect. It has to be meant by design. And I just want to share that with everybody, and I just really hope that you guys all have as much fun as doing this as I did. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brother Ahpa. Can you just stay on a little while longer, and we'll have some questions and some discussion. And for those of you that are listening to the recording, you can get in touch with Brother Ahpa by going to our email, lunarsabbathday@yahoo.com, and I'll forward your question to Brother AhpaPorter. So everyone, please stay around for discussion, and I'm going to close the recording. We'll be back on next Sabbath at the same time, March 9th.